Good morning and Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Ira Stone, Rosh Yeshiva, or Director of the Center for Contemporary Musar, and I'm thrilled to introduce myself to you today. I'm also thrilled to be spending time with Congregation Bez Shalom over the next few weeks during the month of Elul as we prepare for the High Holy Days. In a very strange and troubling year it has been. More than ever before, we need to turn to the spiritual values that have animated Jewish tradition for millennia. As much as at any other time, we need to reflect on ways to internalize those values, making our highest estimation of what each of us as a human being has to offer as much as possible a reality in our everyday lives. As many of you know, the particular area of Jewish spiritual life that I study, practice, and teach is called Musar. We will have the opportunity to delve much more deeply into Musar in the coming weeks. For the moment, let me give a quick definition. Musar is the literature and practice of turning self-absorption and its attendant defensiveness into service of others, beginning with those closest to us and expanding outward infinitely where it becomes divine service. The history of this literature and practice will also be something we learn more about in the coming weeks. For now, I'd like you to keep this definition in mind as we turn our attention to this week's Torah portion, Parshat Re'eh. The Torah writes, "See, I give before you this day blessing and curse. The blessing that you hear the commandments of Adonai your God that I command you this day. The curse if you don't hear the commandments of Adonai your God and turn from the path that I command you this day." Our rabbis were very quick to pick up on the strange structure of these opening sentences. First of all, why does the Torah use the word see? After all, nothing in the verse suggests that there is anything for the people of Israel to see. Moreover, why does the verse emphatically return to the phrase, "on this day"? Furthermore, why does the text speak of giving? The word giving suggests a material object, and here there is none. And even if you say that we could speak of the blessings as a gift, one would never refer to the curses as a gift. So what is the meaning of the term? And finally, what is the meaning of the blessing and curse themselves? We would have expected the Torah to speak of the reward or the punishment that obedience or disobedience yield. What is the meaning of using this blessing and curse structure? Raising these questions, one of the great Musar commentators of the 20th century, Rabbi Shalom Noach Barnabsky, known as the Slonim Rav, in his commentary Mitivot Shalom, addresses them all. Quoting the Kabbalist Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Slonim writes, "No person is exactly the same as another from the beginning of creation onward. Therefore, no person can correct what another person needs to correct." The Slonim then continues, "It is this," he says, "that accounts for this opening sentence in Parshat Re'eh. The verse is not about obedience to the mitzvot as we usually understand them. If it was, then certainly the language of reward and punishment would have been appropriate. Rather, it is referring to the particular agency that each person is granted to correct something in the universe that is out of kilter and which no other person can fix. Each of us has, as it were, a destiny to improve one particular item in the world. This also," he says, "accounts for the language of seeing, since it is necessary that we look, that we search for that piece of the world that is ours to fix. And if we fix it, so to speak, it is not a matter of our receiving a reward, but rather we enlarge the treasury of blessings in the world. It is not about what happens to us, but what happens to the world and everyone else in it. Conversely, of course, To shirk our destiny, to abandon the search for our destiny as blessing maker, is to allow the world's storehouse of curses to grow instead. More importantly, the gift that our destiny is one that requires daily effort. Whether we succeed to live up to our destiny of blessing makers yesterday, or we failed and allowed the curses to multiply, today is another day, and the same challenge confronts us. One of the most radical spiritual insights of much medieval Jewish theology, today often overlooked and shrouded by reading our sources literally, is the profound role this theology assigns to human action. Some of these sources go so far as to suggest that the very cosmos, its maintenance and survival, is dependent on human action. These writings, reflected in the Slonimer Rav's teaching here, use the ambiguous language of the Torah to create a picture of the universe as a treasury of blessing that can only be activated by people. God, so to speak, is the treasury of blessings, but only humans can activate that treasury. Conversely, people also can turn their backs on that treasury, resulting in a world that is cursed. The lack of blessing constitutes the curse. This worldview, already implicit in the Torah, emphasized in rabbinic literature, and brought to its culmination in Kabbalistic literature, is the worldview that also gave rise to Musar. It is a worldview that requires introspection, what we refer to as Cheshbon HaNefesh, an accounting of the soul. It is Cheshbon HaNefesh that is the central tool of Musar practice. It is also the central idea inscribed in the liturgies of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and extended backwards through the entire month of Elul. The difference between the High Holy Day period and Musar is found in the Slonimer's interpretation of the verse we are considering, the importance of the word Hayom, this day. Elul and the high holidays are essential tools that the tradition gives us to recognize the importance of our obligation to draw down blessings from the energy of the universe. The Slonimer reminds us that Elul and the high holidays are not sufficient. This obligation exists every day as today. Musar is the practice that weaves into our everyday lives a consciousness of this obligation and a method for accomplishing it. May we use these weeks to recognize that the power to bring blessing to the world resides only with us, that failing to act on this fact results in experiencing the world as cursed, an experience that is more and more with us in these difficult times, and that bringing these blessings into the world is the work of every day, not just the work of the holidays. I believe it is just such recognition that results in our metaphorically being written into the book of life, not only our life, but the life of every person in the world itself. Shabbat Shalom.